Davis, and I'm back with Mental Health Chats, and I'm very, very excited to have Julian Crump with us today. Hello, Julian. How are you?
Hi, Claire. I'm very well. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. And Julian and I have known each other for quite a few years, so it would be lovely if you could tell everyone, first of all, whereabouts you're based.
Well, for the last 6 years, Claire, I've been living in a very beautiful city in the west of England called Bath.
Oh, I love Bath.
Yeah. It's actually my hometown, so I'm thrilled to be back here.
Oh, that's brilliant. I'm actually not far from Bath. I'm exactly halfway between Bristol and Bath. So I do love
Okay.
having the best of both worlds, which is great.
Yeah, well, the best bit's obviously on the Bath side. Yeah.
Definitely, definitely. So we're all talking about what we're talking about today is building a culture to protect, that's a strong culture to protect your intellectual property. And this is so, so key. So I've asked you for a reason. So would you like to tell
Mm.
everybody about your experience?
Okay, Claire. Well, I'm a patent attorney. In particular, I'm a chartered UK patent attorney. I'm a European patent attorney.
Mhm.
And I started in this profession, goodness me, August. Here we are in August now. August 1989, so 35 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah, it's hard to believe. And over
Mhm.
that time, I have worked in several different firms. I've always worked in private practice,
Yes.
and I've worked for many, I don't know how many, but many different clients in all ranges of technology, in a wide range of different countries, different sizes, different types, and so on. So, yeah, I know a little bit about IP and where it comes from.
I think you probably know more than a little bit, Julian. You're being very modest. And I love the world of intellectual property. I'm very, very fortunate to have met quite a few attorneys in intellectual property right across the world and worked with them. And I find it's just so, so interesting because of all of the different laws within the different countries, etc. So what would be lovely is if you could explain to everybody listening what is intellectual property, first of all?
Sure. Yeah. Um, well, intellectual property is super important. I mean, the way I think of it is it's kind of the currency that makes the world of the technology business world
Yes.
tick. Without IP, you can create ideas, you can come up with new products,
Mhm.
new brands, new creations, but unless they're protected, then anybody can take advantage of your
Yeah.
capital, your expertise, your creativity, and so on.
Mhm.
Um, So IP is at the broadest level is what gives you a competitive edge over your competitors around things that you've devised that are new.
Mm.
To be more specific, there are different types of IP, some of which are registered, which
Mhm.
means you have to register them at a patent office, for example. Some of which are unregistered, they just exist automatically. And I'm thinking about copyright. So if you get your notepad out now, Claire, and you do a little scribble on it, that is technically, it may be rubbish, but
Mhm.
but it's technically an original work,
Yes.
and it attracts copyright, which means that nobody can
Mhm.
copy that as long as you can prove that it was yours.
Yeah.
And the same is true for artistic works. It's true for pieces of music. It's true for books. And moving into the kind of the world of industry, it's true for, say, instruction manuals or leaflets or franchise manuals. All of those things that are kind of created through applying time and energy and effort and money
Mhm.
to document will give you some level of protection from
Yeah.
somebody like an ex-employee, for example, just taking those materials off site and using them in a different business.
Yeah.
Um, things like patents protect new
Mhm.
inventions, so technical methods of doing stuff, technical products, new products, as long as they have some feature of novelty which has not been
Yeah.
disclosed before anywhere in the world, and as long as it has some level of inventiveness, by which I mean non-obviousness, then you can record that at the patent office, and in a similar way, you can then have for a limited time a period in which nobody else
Mhm.
in the relevant country, wherever you've registered your patent, will be able to make or use what you've
Mhm.
protected.
Wow. That involves so much. And what I love about your explanation is the fact that what we need to understand is that businesses, when we're in business, our knowledge, our expertise is evolving all the time. The world of business and technology has
Right.
moved at a very fast pace. So we need to protect our intellectual property, and it goes hand in hand with a statistic I read recently. The REC, the Recruitment and Employment Confederation, states it costs at least 2.5 times someone's salary to replace them.
Interesting.
It's huge.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. And a particular piece or type of intellectual property that I didn't mention before is what is known in our world as know-how. So, so patents are a kind of a definite thing. They exist in
Yeah.
paper. They contain statements at the end, which are called claims, that set out in words what it is protected. So if an employee were to leave a business, for example, the patent would still exist and would still continue to protect that business. But there are some things that just can't be patented. They're kind of incremental improvements. They're sort of the way of working the machine in lab number 2. They're something perhaps as sort of trivial, I say trivial, it can be very valuable. The route you take when you're making your deliveries of your parcels. You
Yeah.
you you found
It-
you found,
Wow.
and actually
Yeah.
that was the subject of a case. I think it was milk deliveries or something, a couple of decades ago.
Yeah.
But the way that you tell your drivers to drive can save you time and money. So
Yes.
all of those things, that could never be patented, for example, at least. I mean, maybe with a bit of guile it could be, but essentially it's an unpatentable idea, but it's still valuable. So all of those kind of things like, which particular material to use, what temperature all sorts of things about how you get stuff done, not
Mm.
even deeper than the patent, the level of granular
Yes.
detail, that is usually in the heads of employees.
Mm. We've uncovered so many layers here.
All right.
So what are the risks if you've got high staff turnover for your intellectual property that you've just uncovered so much, it evolved so
Mm.
much? What are the
Well,
risks?
there are all kinds of risks, but as going back to what I've just been saying, clearly, if a lot of the important information that a business has about how to just get stuff done, which can't be protected formally in any other way, for example, through a registered trademark or a registered patent, it exists in the employee's head. So when it goes out the door and new
Definitely.
employees come in, they're not necessarily going to know,
Yes.
all that stuff.
Yeah.
So it's important to try and keep people. I think there's something else too, though, Claire, which is about the
Mm.
creative process. One of my clients that I was working with, a big client of mine that I was working with at the end of the 90s, early 2000s, they were a great business to work for. I won't say who they were, but they had an in-house design team who were bubbling with energy, bubbling with
Yeah.
ideas, and they were
Yeah.
a kind of a cohesive team. They had a
Mm.
well-established process for working with each
Mm.
other, for working with their management, for working with me,
Yeah.
to get new ideas out. They had an internal process, I guess, for prompting the development of new product ideas, and then for developing those to a point where they can involve me, and we had a discussion about how to protect them, and then ultimately implementing them in their business.
Yeah.
But that team over time, it gradually left. People went away and they went set up their own businesses,
Yeah.
all of whom are doing very well. But it left that business a little bit. It sort of kicked the energy out of it.
Yeah. Mm.
The team. I mean, it's so many things I've discovered are kind of team sports. You
Yes.
can't do everything on your own, and there's something sort of intangible about, I think, about getting the right mix of people, the right blend of people, where
Yeah.
they all know how each other works, they all know each other's roles, and that is the way in which new inventions, new ideas, new ways of doing things, emerge successfully in a business. And if you take away a key player of that team, let alone more than
Yes.
one, all of a sudden, there's a risk that the whole thing kind of collapses.
Yeah.
And I've seen that happen. So I think, as you said, there are many, many different aspects to this
There
question.
are.
But
There
but
are.
clearly, if you can keep a winning team together and you know and understand the value of what's in their heads individually and collectively,
Yeah.
then you're beginning to understand the power of IP.
I absolutely love what you've just said with regards to that team working together and keeping a team together, because that's what I work on with the clients that I work with. I coach the clients on their culture so the team stays together. And I do that through positive intelligence coaching. So you've
Right.
just given a great example of the benefits. What other benefits? What other benefits are there of keeping a team together and keeping that culture positive, like your team was initially, but unfortunately
Mm,
it drifted off for some reason. So there
mm.
were huge benefits. Can you explain the benefits with regards to the knowledge that they will keep and the intellectual property?
Yeah, well, like I say, intellectual property has, has different definitions,
Mm,
and it depends how strict you want to be. So in my world, you'll find that many IP attorneys will say, well, IP is copyright, trademarks, designs,
yes, yeah.
patents, you know, and know-how, I guess. But when you look at an agreement that's drafted by, let's say, by a solicitor, that's to do with,
Mm,
let's say, a consultancy agreement or employment agreement or
mm,
a collaboration agreement, a whole raft of different things, they define intellectual property rather more broadly, and they start bringing in things like data, results,
yes,
ideas,
yeah, yeah,
concepts.
yeah.
That's going way beyond, what can be protected in law. It's protected through culture. It's protected
Yes.
through employment agreements for sure, trying to retain people. It's protected through restrictive agreements on what they
Mm,
might be able to do with their knowledge or where they might be able to work post-employment, for a competitor, etc. Um, Very, very intangible, very, very nebulous, but clearly valuable.
yeah,
And so, and so the benefits to the business of keeping that team together,
yeah.
are I think self-evident. If you've
Huge.
got a
They're
winning formula, why
huge.
break it up?
Why
Right?
break it? And keep the culture going, keep the culture positive. We've got to keep the
Yeah.
relationships going because if the relationships are positive, and this is what I work on, the three core areas are
Mm,
relationships, well-being, and if they're right, then the
mm.
performance improves.
Yeah, and I think
Obviously.
there's a sort of an attitude around IP as well. Again, I've found through my years of experience that there are some businesses who are, let's say, rather laissez-faire to IP. Perhaps they don't really get it. Perhaps they don't really need it. There are certainly types of business where IP protection is more important than others.
Oh, definitely.
Um, but then there are businesses where, for whatever reason, and it can come down to the manager or the
Mm,
board's attitude to it themselves, it kind of permeates through the organization. And what you find is that
mm.
when the team are working on a project and they know it's going to be protected in some way, it sort of develops a momentum of its own. Another client I worked for I guess in the mid 90s was in the food industry.
Oh, yeah.
Again, a household name. I won't mention who they were. But they were very, very, very innovative. Their board, their chairman, who was quite a
Mm,
well-known guy, um, he was keen on making sure that their IP was protected, and that permeated through to the team on the ground, who were doing this,
yeah.
doing the work. And I think by defining what it is you're working on, by defining your results, by ultimately by filing a patent application where you have captured the essence of the idea and you've delineated it clearly,
Mm,
notwithstanding the legal protection that gives you, it also internally gives the team a certain sort of, it makes them feel good. It feels them,
yeah.
we,
A sense of
we've
ownership. Yeah, it's a sense of ownership.
exactly, that's a good way of putting it.
Yeah.
It's like a pride of ownership.
Yeah.
This is
Mm,
ours. This is the
mm,
XYZ project. We've given it a name. It's patented,
yes.
it's valuable, right?
And
And
that
we
was my
created it.
idea. That was
That was my
my,
or our idea. We
yeah,
created that.
yeah.
And the patent process brings with it deadlines, which are very, very strict. If you don't meet certain deadlines, you
Yeah.
can lose all your rights. So again, I think that kind of adds to the sense of importance and the sense of momentum, because by working to a deadline, if you've got
Mm,
some sort of rather frustrating patent attorney on the line who's saying they need this data by such and such a date in order to complete the filing, you've kind of got to roll up your sleeves and get it done, and then you sort of dig in and you get on and you do what's needed. But I think that that's a way of pushing the project forwards. And I'm not trying to suggest for a minute that the IP tail should wag the business dog. I'm certainly not saying that. But
yeah.
but nevertheless, there is this kind of, you know, um,
Mm.
attitude, kind of perspective, I suppose, that knowledge of the value of IP gives to, the way that the
Oh,
team works
definitely.
together.
The value and the way the team works together. I absolutely love
Mm.
that. Oh my goodness. You have given us so much information. Thank you so much, Julian. And
My pleasure.
think about, and this is going to be so valuable for so many people out there in realizing how important it is to retain their teams and value them. So I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who would love to get in touch, Julian. So where can people find you?
In Bath.
Lovely.
Yeah, no, I'm with a great firm, Abel and Imre. We've just a few years ago celebrated 150 years. We've been around a
Wow.
long time.
Wow.
We have offices here, Cardiff, London, and in Delft in the Netherlands, so we can do the European aspect of things as well.
Brilliant.
So yeah, I'm here. I'm in Bath. I come to London
Lovely.
every now and then. I have clients in Cambridge. I'm happy to travel. Yeah, wherever. Just pick up the
Lovely.
phone. I love to talk
Thank
about
you.
IP, so please.
And I can tell you love to talk about it. It's been so inspiring and so insightful. So thank you so much, Julian, for all your wise words, and take care.
Very welcome, Claire. You take care too. Speak soon.
Thank you.